but let's talk about the 76ers and the Denver Nuggets. Again, just a fascinating game for a number of reasons. The Nuggets dropped like 73 points in the first half of this game. It looked like they were completely unstoppable offensively. And then the 76ers made a really, really intelligent move, switching PJ Tucker onto Nikola Jokic. And I don't think I've seen anybody this season who has been able to speed up Nikola Jokic in the way that PJ Tucker did. We often talk about on this podcast how Nikola Jokic is like this algorithm of basketball, and there's almost nothing you can do to speed that up. He's just going to operate at his own pace. He's going to operate at his own tempo and completely dominate the game with his decision-making and passing and processing ability. He's going to score. He's going to make high-level reads to his teammates. And from the moment that PJ Tucker just started to like get into his lower half and crawl into him in transition from 75 feet away from the basket into the mid post, anywhere on the court in these short roll settings, it was so interesting to see that algorithm like just 10% malfunction and the effect it had on Denver's offense. I think PJ Tucker, look, obviously Joel Embiid was the most important player in the game. James Harden was the second most important player. PJ Tucker was unequivocally the Sixers' third most important player in that game. He was awesome against Nikola Jokic.
And that's where I wanted to talk about this looking forward to the playoffs, because I think what the Sixers were able to show, at least in a way that Denver has to now be conscious of, is maybe a little bit of a blueprint for how to interrupt that Nuggets offense in a certain way, where if you have a physical four-man who can really slide his feet, move around, and still be able to play a rim protector next to him to clean up some of the backdoor cuts, the other moves in a way that Embiid was really impactful in doing in that second half, now you might have a way to cause some turnovers against Denver. And I think that that's the biggest thing is Jokic. I think he finished with 7 turnovers. Philly was able to get a couple easy ones as a result of some of that. Like those possessions add up at the end of a game, but speeding up Jokic was definitely the story of the second half.
Yeah, the idea of being able to put a physical 4 on him and then having that rim protection to guard against Aaron Gordon, particularly because Aaron Gordon is constantly cutting baseline. He's constantly trying to finish at the rim. He's been an incredible partner for Nikola Jokic this season. I think he's probably been the second best Nugget this season. And on top of it, like I thought he was really good yesterday. Shot 8 of 10 from the field. I think he had like 19 points, 16 points, something like that. He was super, super impactful. And yet having Joel Embiid just be able to sit at the rim and be available and just let Aaron Gordon shoot. Like if Aaron Gordon wants to shoot, by all means, go for it. That's going to be a strategy that opposing teams implement throughout the playoffs.
No doubt.
And I think that Denver needs to find an answer for that. As good as Aaron Gordon's been, maybe it's Aaron Gordon just like trusting himself and upping the 3-point volume. He shot 39% from 3 this year. He's just only taking 2.5 of them per game, right? In this game, he only took 1 of them and missed it. So maybe it comes down to Aaron Gordon trusting himself a little bit more. Maybe it comes down to, them just having a different, club in the toolbox, right? Or club in the bag in order to bust out in moments like this to give defenses a bit of a different look. I don't want to put this down to Aaron Gordon. I think he's been fantastic this season. I think he played his role really, really well. It's just that when teams can do this, it's interesting in a way to potentially slow down Denver's offense. You saw a lot of those like high-low lob plays, for instance, that Nikola Jokic loves to run. Those just completely evaporated with Joel Embiid being able to sit at the basket in that way. So, yeah, it's a really, really interesting thing that I think Denver is going to have to solve in addition to their defense, which just also desperately needs solving on some level. Denver is in just like a really fascinating spot. They're so good because Jokic and, Michael Porter is getting healthier and healthier every game. Jamal Murray is getting healthier and healthier every game. They're getting this incredible, not quite all-star turn from Aaron Gordon, but like legitimate high-level starter turn from Aaron Gordon on a winning playoff team where he plays great defense and is an awesome cutter. but they still have some real flaws and some real
Yeah.
holes. And they need to kind of use the deadline and use the rest of the season to try and cover those up maybe a little bit is the way to put it.
Well, the thing about the Sixers' defensive scheme from Saturday was when you pressure Jokic a little bit more and you have a rim protector in Joel Embiid sitting back there and able to just dare guys to backdoor cut to him, that allows everybody else on the perimeter to pick up their pressure because they're not fearing getting backdoor cut. And when you're
Yep.
Jokic and you're searching for reversals, you're searching for other guys to flip the ball to that you can then go and one thing he's great at is using pass fakes and other means to get people open, then running into a quick kind of ball screen that he might roll off of and making good decisions from there. Those avenues are done when people can't cut to get open on the perimeter. They're going to get jammed and denied more in passing lanes. And if they backdoor, then they're just going straight into a rim protector and a guy like Embiid. So, I mean, it definitely takes a specific roster construction with what you can do in the front court to be versatile enough to put the Nuggets in that position. But I think if there are a few teams in the Western Conference that are looking around for maybe one move that they could make at the deadline to add that piece, that could cause a real problem for Denver.
Well, and if you're Memphis, right, do you feel like that you might be able to play something like Santi Aldama as a 7-footer at the rim and then just have Jaren Jackson guard Nikola Jokic, or vice versa, right, where you have Jaren at the rim and just deal with Aldama, or have Steven Adams just try and body up Nikola Jokic, right? Like it'll be interesting the way that teams try to operate against Jokic moving forward. And again, none of this accounts for the biggest problem that Denver has, which is the defense. And we should move to the other end of the court now, where Joel Embiid was phenomenal in this game. And I feel bad that I feel like people are not noticing the Sixers. I think that people just hate watching the 76ers right now because they have James Harden and they're sick of James Harden and his passed as a foul drawing magnet. They're sick of the way Joel Embiid falls to the ground or whatever and, tries to draw fouls on his own, and they play these like stop-starty games. Here's the thing. Joel Embiid is fucking incredible at basketball. And I think there is a very real case that he is the best center in the NBA. I really love Nikola Jokic. I had Nikola Jokic at number 2 on my midseason MVP ballot, quote unquote ballot, that I did with Jason Timpf, maybe 3 weeks ago or something. Man, it's the combination of defense at the rim for Embiid as well as the unbelievable shot creation. Everyone just acts like it's a no-brainer that Nikola Jokic is the best center in the league. And to be honest, I probably very, very, very slightly lean in that direction. But these two guys are so incredibly close as basketball players. And Joel Embiid straight up got the better of Nikola Jokic in this game. And that has to mean something on some level. MVP, there's still, a third of the season left, more than a third of the season left. Who knows where that's going to settle? I think that Joel Embiid just clearly came out, and you could see it from the moment that this game started. First offensive set, pump fake into a mid-post, in the mid-post into a drive and one. Third possession, trailer drive from Embiid into a finish at the rim. Fourth possession, 18-foot jumper, nothing but net. Like you could just see totally locked in from the jump. Seventh possession for the Sixers. Just bullies Jokic, just like hip checks him under the rim to create that little bit of space after a dump off pass from Harden, finishes at the basket, right? Like you can just see that he wanted to dominate this game. He was pissed about the all-star thing where he's not an all-star starter. He's pissed about the fact that Nikola Jokic gets all this hype and credit. And he came out, he dropped 47 points, and it was just clear he was the guy on that day that was by far the best player on the court.
Well, and Sam, you talked about this on your podcast earlier in the week with Mark Schindler about the Defensive Player of the Year voting. Like there always seems to be these qualifying statements around Joel Embiid, right? Like he can play like this when he's locked in. And he had every piece of motivation in the world against Denver, a really important, impactful game for the Sixers where he shows up like this. He plays his ass off for the entire game. And we saw what Philly is capable of at their apex because they had good performances from other guys other than just Embiid. But I'm really sick of seeing kind of qualifying statements with guys where we know that they're capable of this, and then there's other games where it seems like they're very much not locked in on the defensive end of the floor. And that's the thing that Philly and Embiid have kind of been fighting, is this is by far the best version of them that we can see. That is a championship caliber team on both ends of the floor.
I think they really are. I think they really genuinely are now.
But there's a but with it, right? It's if they show up and if they play this engaged all the time. And I think that's the lack of trust that comes into them a lot of times from the public, and maybe why, you're saying earlier, people are kind of sick of watching the Sixers play. It's because you don't really know which version of them you're always going to get.
So yes and no. I know what you're saying, and I agree with it to an extent. I also think that for the most part, when Embiid has been on the court, other than that little 8-game stretch to start the year, he's just been really good on defense, just straight up. Like he has just been straight up very, very good on the defensive end of the court. His rim protection has been top notch. He's been more engaged within ball screen actions. He is the guy that is kind of holding their defense up right now. PJ Tucker has been really, really good on defense and really valuable. D'Anthony Melton's energy and activity level in those ball screen defensive possessions has been really valuable as well. And also Matisse Thybulle's having a great limited minute, season on defense.
Sure.
And, you can look up and down the roster. They're much deeper. And this is something I want to talk about as well. They're much deeper, but I will say that this team right now, I actually feel pretty good about them moving forward, as a potential NBA champion. Right now, they're 12-1 to win the title. The Celtics are 4-1. The Bucks are 5.5-1. The Nets, Nuggets are 8-1. The Warriors are 9-1. The Grizzlies are 11-1. The Sixers are 12-1. They are the 7th favorite to win the title. They would be in my top 3 for sure right now. And here's why. Last year, there was just that little bit of a lack of synergy between Joel Embiid and James Harden in ball screen settings. They didn't quite have it down yet. They have it down now. These two are absolutely filthy in ball screen actions. A lot of it is Joel Embiid, short rolls. But then you look in the fourth quarter of this game, and they started running these starts to these sets where it would essentially be like a stagger screen action, where the first screen was Tyrese Maxey just coming up and trying to set a blocker screen for Harden. And then Embiid would come up, not really in a Spain action, but more above the break of the 3-point line, or right at the 3-point line, to then try and get that secondary mismatch. And it was almost unguardable for the Nuggets. Every time down, they didn't really have a way to beat it. And that's the kind of innovation that I think they didn't quite have last year, that little extra step that they can get teams, just completely discombobulated at the point of attack against Harden. Here's the other thing. I know James Harden's only averaging 21 points. He's averaging 12 assists a game so far this year, 11 to 12 assists a game. He has been unbelievable since he got back from that little stretch where he was out. He has been, I think, at 21 points, 12 assists, 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, 7 rebounds, shooting 46% from the field, 41% from 3, obviously makes all of his free throws. He has just been absolutely unbelievable. He is a no doubter all-star for me.
Yeah.
Not even a question in my mind. I mentioned this on Twitter, but I would have both Tyrese Halliburton and James Harden as all-stars this year. I think they're both more than qualified and deserving. I would have them over guys like Jalen Brunson. I'd have them over guys like Trae Young. I would, Jaylen Brown, that's kind of a different conversation and a harder conversation to have because he's listed as a guard, but he has to be there, I think, at the end of the day. I think those are the 3 that I would have. I would have one of them in a wild card spot, and I would have Brown and Harden in the 2 guard spots. So I'd have Halliburton in the wild card spot. If you look at Harden's numbers versus, and look, I don't mean to make this the Halliburton versus Harden mess here, but I think they're actually kind of playing somewhat stylistically similar this season is almost why I bring it up.
Yeah.
They're both averaging right around 21 points, 11 assists, six, in Harden's case, 6 rebounds. Halliburton is at 20 points, 10 assists, 4 rebounds. Harden has a better true shooting percentage. On top of it, there's this idea that James Harden is just a creation of Joel Embiid this season. And that just is not true. You look at their play-by-play stats, Daryl Blackport's terrific site. You look at the Sixers with James Harden on the court, Joel Embiid off the court. They have a net rating of plus 2.1. When Tyrese Halliburton is on the court for the Pacers, they have a net rating of like negative 0.1, basically. I think that, it's negative 0.1. So they're slightly losing the minutes where Halliburton's out there. It's fine. Like they're still 22 and 18 when he plays games. Like he's not the reason they're losing those minutes. But I think the Sixers are a better team when James Harden is out there versus the Pacers when Halliburton is out there. And you can say that like, the Sixers are a better team, right? I don't know. I mean, Myles Turner would be the third, if we're counting, those 10 players potentially that would be on the court, saying that James Harden and Tyrese Halliburton are 1 and 2 in some order, right? The next best player out of that group is Myles Turner, if we take Joel Embiid off the court, right? Like unequivocally.
Yeah, he's probably
all due
more
respect.
Yeah.
Like all due respect to like,
Yeah.
Maxey, Tobias Harris, PJ Tucker, all those guys. Buddy Hield's shooting 1,000,000,000% from 3 on like incredible volume this season. He's been great. I would say like his season has been pretty close to Maxey's, if we're being honest. So I don't know. Like I don't think the lineup difference is actually that substantial either. So I would have Harden ahead of Halliburton, but that's more of a statement of me saying that is how good James Harden has been this season. His distribution, his passing, his playmaking has gone completely under the radar. And it needs so much more attention. He deserves so much credit for the way he has integrated himself into being that number 2 option for the 76ers. On top of it, like, one of the pushbacks I got from Pacers fans was, if you take Tyrese Halliburton off of the Pacers, they've completely fallen apart. And they are. I think they're like 2-9 in games where Halliburton doesn't play. It is so much harder in the NBA to go from a 500 team, which is like right around what the Pacers are, to being a 70% winning percentage team, right around where the 76ers are, as opposed to going from like a 30% winning percentage team to a 50% winning percentage team, or even like a 20, like you could even say that like it's harder to go from 20% or to go from 50 to 70 than it is from 20 to 50, I think, even though that difference is greater when it's 20 to 50. It is so hard to win at the highest levels of the NBA, and the 76ers are doing it. I am a big believer in this team. They're way deeper. The guy that's really stood out recently is, George Niang.
Yeah.
They don't win that game last night without George Niang. So the score is 99-84. George Niang hits back-to-back threes out on the semi-break to get it to 99-90. Then Jamal Murray commits an offensive foul. Joel Embiid gets an and one when, they take Nikola Jokic off the court for a minute. So they have Jeff Green guarding him. Then they bring Jokic back on for the offensive possession. He throws just like a terrible lob to Jeff Green, and Embiid breaks it up. He gets the ball, gets fouled, takes that weird like 3/4 court shot that he gets fouled on. And, then it's your 12-0 run. It's 99-96 entering the fourth quarter, and all bets are off. And then Niang later in the fourth quarter hits that like miracle corner 3 from the Harden inbounds pass where the Nuggets just like completely break down and like forget he's out there. And it's just like, this, what are we doing, Denver? But also like they're so much deeper. They have so many different options to create in those settings, I think. So I really like Philly. I get that like people in the public seem to be down on them. As long as Embiid and Harden are healthy, I believe in this team. Like I think they are like clearly the number 2 team I would bet on in the East. And I would feel better about them than most of the teams in the West right now, honestly, including Denver, because I just think Denver has more holes that are exploitable in the playoffs than Philly does.
Yeah, Philly is a little bit deeper, both in terms of just how many players they can have off their bench, but the different holes that they can cover up based on what their opponent brings to the table. You can throw DeAnthony Melton out on different backcourt scores. You can have Thibault out there for periods of time. Niang is going to come in and be the least gun-shy human being you'll ever find on the planet. Like, if he's open, it's going up. Like Montrezl Harrell can score against opposing bigs off the bench and kind of carry a little bit of offense in the pick and roll if you need to. I think that's an underrated pairing, and maybe why Harden is doing so well when Embiid sits is because you actually have a decently offensively minded pick and roll big and partner for their guards to be able to run with. So I like the way that Philly is set up from a depth perspective, and it's going to give Doc Rivers a lot of different buttons to press in the playoffs. I just want to make sure that we're very clear on one thing, Sam. He can't sit all of his starters at the same time in the postseason. Like, he's going to have to juggle those lineups if we're going to trust the Sixers to make a run to the finals.
Yeah, like that is my main concern about the 76ers right now is Doc Rivers. But you know what? He's getting a little bit more creative offensively. As I mentioned earlier, there have been some really interesting things that have happened in Philly that at least give me like a glimmer of hope that Doc won't fuck this up. I believe in the 76ers in a real way that concerns me at the moment.
Now, I know you wanted to talk Nuggets defense at some point. Can I propose that we come back to that in a later segment? Because I think it's really relevant to what we're going to talk about a little bit later on.